Hey, Decide Your Destiny crew. Carl Spreedy's here. Thanks for joining me for another interview. And today we've got Benny Wallington in the hot seat across the Nullarbor on the other side of the state. And he's the founder of 101 Tokens, where he helps men and women alike have a better relationship with alcohol, where they can enjoy it and also manage their enjoyment of it. As I know we all get a bit wild when we get a bit of the gooseberries going.
Indeed.
Over to you, Benny. I'd love you to introduce yourself because I know you can do a better introduction than me. But take it away.
Mate, I thought that was a pretty good introduction. Thanks for having me. It's rad to be having a yarn with you. We connected a week ago through a dear friend, Stephen Kuhn, and we just had such an epic riff. Something I really value is great conversations with people that can really charge you up for the day. So I'm frothing to be here. My main jam is really helping people to change their habits, perhaps transition them to more of a ritual state. And I've done a lot of training with, in particular, a company in the US called the Flow Genome Project. Mm-hmm. And so I've been a performance coach, trained with them, now coach for them for the last couple of years. And really, when it comes to drinking, which is not something I worked out initially, is that or drinking or any vice that we might have, let's say our addictions to digital, or let's say Netflix is a vice, food, chocolate, that kind of stuff.
Yes.
Anything that we're using in a negative way that is unconducive to a healthy lifestyle is essentially a flow blocker. And when I'm talking about flow, I'm talking about that heightened state that we get in when we're feeling in resonance. We can have that from a conversation. We can have that from downhill mountain biking or surfing, or we can have it from sex, anything like that. Everyone's felt those glimpses of when time stands still and the magic just occurs. And so what I realized is kind of out the back of shifting drinking habits and those other vices is once you get those into a position where they're no longer hindering your access to flow and your access to becoming your best self, even though I don't like using that term, but hey, let's go with it. You can actually alchemize those habits into positives. So that's kind of a narrative that's not really been talked about, because it's either, especially with booze, it's a great example. It's either heroicized within the culture, but we all know it's bad for us. And so, but we've all got that uncle who's gone too far, or but we've had grandparents pass away, et cetera, et cetera. And so it's this, like, I call it the drunk elephant in the room. And the way that we look at it is, how can we harm minimize our alcohol consumption? Or how can we eat? Like, how can we try and be healthy, but let's just like have less fat people, etc. My whole take on this is let's swing out the other side and try and figure out how alcohol in particular can be a positive for our relationships. And if it can't, and it's all about understanding your relationship to it, transitioning it to a place. And if it's still just not working, then, cut it. It's no good. Easier said than done, but I'd like to think that if people took the outset that, I'm going to try my hardest to make this a positive, then we would have a much different sort of society.
Anyway, that is brilliant. I love your solution to the problem, and your direction is, like you said, it's a different way of looking at it, because it is really, and this is a big thing in our society, it's the all or nothing sort of thing, kind of, if you either, like you said, you either drink alcohol, you have it, you enjoy it, you embrace it, or you have to go and have a dry month. You have to cut off completely. There's no kind of in between, and it's kind of that extremity of our personalities. We either cut it all out, or we over abuse it. And you're going in the middle and saying, how can we live with it? How can we vibe with it? How can we kind of, slowly maybe ease off it and kind of manage it a little bit better? Because, a lot of times for some people, that all or nothing kind of, take on it works. But for other people, we're all unique individuals and we're all unique beings, and how we're going to react to an all or nothing sort of attitude is going to be different. That could make someone else relapse. So maybe you need, ease off it, or maybe you need to work out, all right, I drink only when I'm around with family, or I've got my partner around, and we have this sort of ritual, like you said, developing those rituals. I have a glass of wine after cooking dinner because I go, this is an enjoyment time, after a long day's work. So it's like you said, it's not talked about often, and I'm really glad that you're plugging that hole.
Yeah, there's a really simple concept to the whole thing as well. Like it's all well and good to be like, okay, I'm going to moderate. Or at the moment we're coming towards the end of January, so it's dry January, and
Yeah.
I'm in a lot of groups on Facebook, and I sort of offer support to those groups. And there's a lot of people who just, the narrative is, oh, I drank so much after January last year, and now I'm having my 30 days off. I think it's an achievement, but it's not changing a habit. It's not building a new ritual. What you're
Long
really doing
lasting.
is just, what you're really doing is just taking something away for a bit. And so my process, and what I recommend to everyone, and you don't need, I've got an app, but you don't need an app. You just need to put it down somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's after every time you drink alcohol the next morning, ask yourself whether it was worth it or not. That's it. Simple. Yes or no. And basically what you're doing is you're collecting data on yourself. You got to be truthful. If you're full of shit, then you're going to get shit back.
Shit data. Yeah.
Exactly. Shit in, shit out.
Yeah.
And so, and essentially it's just going like you said, oh, actually that glass of wine with my parents or with my partner after dinner the next day, I feel good. I'm still doing my exercise. I'm still going to work. I'm a happy chap. It's those ones on the weekend. Oh, I probably shouldn't have had that, ninth tequila. Yeah. Maybe I should cut it at 2 or something like that. Or those people, actually, I'm discovering a trend that it's these 2 mates who are not really awesome. Perhaps I should suggest, and I'm not saying get rid of your mates. It's just like I suggest that we could do something else and then see what the reaction is. And it's so interesting to step back and look at your being and go, what percentage of my identity is made up of drinking alcohol?
Yeah.
And that's really a hard hitting one. It hit me really hard back in the days, but
well, it's like working out those, like you said, like I worked out, I went, okay, right, let's do this, let's go here, and with a couple of friends. And then I went, wow, I've got quite a few drinking buddies. Like when we catch up, we drink. That's what we do. Like we only catch up when we drink. And I'm like, how did I not see that? Because like you said, you're not asking the question, you're not challenging yourself. You're not like challenging, like you said, challenging is just doing a dry January okay, or is changing the habit okay? And that's where you're really getting into those questions. So your app, is it 101 tokens?
Yep.
Where people can find it? Cool.
Yep, awesome. They can. Yep.
Awesome.
Hopefully it's just down at the moment because of some Google regulations, which I think is just going to keep happening. But the Apple Store's up. So have a search. If not, hit me up and I'll Benny at 101tokens.com and I'll reply and let you know when it's live again.
Beautiful. Propping good stuff, my brother. Now, can you tell me along your journey, what or who inspired you to take your first steps to, I guess, be doing such personal growth and health and in this sort of field that you're working in now? I know you're doing quite a few different things, but I guess speaking purely 101 tokens and helping people with their habits, helping people with getting to a better flow state for their life. Was there like kind of a pinnacle turning point for you?
Yeah, so I went to this really epic advertising entrepreneur school in London when I was 26.
Cool.
And back then I probably was drinking for Australia for sure. And advertising is a bit of a wild industry. It's not quite the Mad Men that people see on TV, but it's certainly got that stigma, the drinking culture, party culture. Anyway, I started my career in my early 20s in advertising in Sydney, but not in the space that I wanted to. I wanted to use my creative brain. And so I moved to London and I joined this 10-month college, which I still think is the best college in the world for advertising.
Wow.
And part of the way through it, a lot more entrepreneurs started coming in. I kind of got this entrepreneur bug about me a little bit. And at the same time, a fellow came in to talk about an old copywriter, an old famous. So copywriting is just writing words. The art director is the designer. I'm sure you're aware. Maybe that's just for your listeners because I forget people don't know that.
Yeah.
And he came in to talk about this famous copywriter who passed away, but he'd written about him. His name was Howard Luck Gossage, and this guy had sort of had this epiphany after selling a lot of stuff over the years for big brands. That why am I selling stuff for brands that isn't positive when trees are getting cut down and like also they were at the one point in the US they were looking to sort of decimate some of their national treasures, like the Grand Canyon. And so he started this thing called the Sierra Club, I think it's called. Oh, cool. And anyway, that was kind of like a penny drop for me. I was like, why am I going to go back into advertising? I'd already sold Schweppes and worked for the big evil banks here in Australia.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going back into that stuff.
Yeah.
So I ended up going into the startup space and joined a positive impact crowdfunding company. So rather than being a junior copywriter and getting the scraps, my first jobs were working on these global charities and them pretty much giving me license to create strategies and campaigns for saving the oceans, kids with disabilities, teaching kids in favelas how to film to get them out of the drug trades, teach them like camera skills, all this stuff. Just these wild projects. Sustainable board shorts, one of my favorite. So what's
involved with sustainable board shorts?
These guys are called Riz board shorts. They're in the UK. They're kind of a high-end board short. So even back then, you'd be paying Aussie, $120 for a pair of boardies. But I've still got them. So that's like 8 years later. Sustainable. So they were made. They were the first recycled and recyclable board short on the market. So that means they were made out of recycled materials, and then they could be fully recycled back through the company. And since then, I think they paved the way for likes of Billabongs and Rip Curl. So I'm still not sure if those guys are up to that standard yet, but certainly like trailblazers. And so I loved working there. I loved working there, and that sort of took me into a space of trying to build my own companies and through entrepreneurship. I had a little one, had some success working with a Premier League football club, not quite Manchester United, but Southampton in the Premier League. And so that was really cool. I basically just bootstrapped that. And the idea was to take unsold sporting tickets at sports grounds and then allow people in the community who didn't have the money to afford them to volunteer for them. So it was kind of this nice, it was really cool. We did it in the UK. We did it in Australia with the Swans and Clean Up Australia, but I couldn't work out a business model. And at the same time, I'd been changing my drinking habits just as a personal endeavor in 2016. Mm-hmm. And so, I basically spent a whole year just monitoring myself, doing 101 tokens, which was giving myself 101 drinks that year rather than, I was drinking like 5 nights a week. So if I was equating it to tokens, that would have been 250 tokens I was drinking. And so this was under twice a week. 101's catchier than 104 if you do the maths. And stuck to 101 for a whole year and blogged about it. I love writing, and it really sort of caught hold with friends and family. Following year in 2017, 100 of them signed up, nearly 100, 90 something, and 35 finished, and they all got these similar results to me. It was like, saved heaps of money, went traveling, health was heaps better, obviously not getting in as much trouble, all these good things that come from cutting back your drinking and doing it mindfully. And then the year after that, we developed an app, and then so it's actually been downloaded in 76 different countries. So I'm pretty proud of that. We got a bit of global press, so that was fun.
Awesome. How did that happen?
Well, I guess I have my advertising marketing background and working in crowdfunding for global charities. I kind of knew how to write a press release, and I wear party shirts, and I had a big mullet at the time. So I was like, the Aussie fella trying to teach people how to drink. It was a good story. And got on the TV channels here as well. It was lots of fun. And since then, that's kind of where my journey led me to the Flow Genome Project, because I started to get interested in like, okay, well, cool, we've changed our drinking habits, but what else is there? What else are we leaving on the table? And so then that took me down the path. And when people talk about flow states, the fanciness of this, the magic, really what people who are accessing flow a lot are doing is the foundational things, right? So it's your sleep, your nutrition, your movement, exactly, your mindfulness practices, and all of those lay the foundation for you to go off and do whatever your passion is, whether it's photography, whether it's writing, whether it's surfing big waves, whatever. All those things allow you to access that magical state that everyone loves. And yeah, it just kind of tied in with 101 tokens. And so yeah, I'm just really curious what I found going to London. I didn't feel like I was curious at university. But once I got back there, I just found this froth for learning again. And I think it was because of the way that the college was set up, which was more about like, follow your passions. Here's a project. Go out and actually don't just create an ad campaign. Go out and try and pitch it to the marketing department of that company. Like, go out and do weird stuff. And that's what we did, and that's what I love, and I've continued to do weird stuff ever since.
Right, I love it. And I love that you use that word curious. Like, I think it's such a, I don't know, I think it's a word that really should have a lot more attention. You get motivation has a lot of attention, and these different sort of words, but curiosity, I mean, it's such a driver. Like, I was thinking about the other, if you look at, I was reading because I'm writing this book and I've got another person I'm writing with, and mine's like self-help, inspirational sort of journey, and hers is about like self-help in her own way, but healing over a breakup and different sort of things. So it's very interesting for me. It's very out of the box. It's very different, like a book that I wouldn't usually read. But it's really kind of going like and hitting a chord, and as I'm reading it, I'm realizing, okay, I'm really curious about it. This is why I'm absorbing everything. This is why I'm able to pick up on any like spell checks or anything, because I'm really curious. And finding that curiosity is like where you really absorb things. If you're not curious about things, you can go to the class, you can go study, you can go turn up, you can be the most astute, student, and nothing will get into you because you're not curious, you're not excited, you don't have that lust for that energy for learning and getting involved and getting your hands dirty, like you said. And you could be doing things that people say, wow, that's amazing you're doing that, or you're working for that company, you should be so grateful, you should be so happy. And it's like, rather than telling me what I should be, ask me if I'm curious about it. Ask if I'm interested. Ask me what I'm doing to challenge myself each day. What else am I doing? What angle am I taking at this company? Rather than just I'm now this this label, this brand, this category. What am I curious about? I think that curiosity is such a important thing.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that you touched on that. It's I used to say this a lot. I get bored quick. Like, that's why I can't focus, because I'll see the next shiny thing. But I've actually changed it to that I just get curious easily.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I'm not getting bored. I'm just getting curious about other things, which is kind of a nice mental shift for me.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things while maintaining that curiosity is your self-talk, like you just said there, how you change your self-talk, and also influences, whether it's family, whether it's other people, managing those influences. Because I don't know if you've seen on YouTube, I've been making these videos, and it's like a Decide Your Destiny daily dose. And it's kind of just, how Stephen Kuhn's got his daily purge. And I did the interview of him, and he really inspired me. He said, like, get the camera out each day, like just talk to the camera, try something. And I was like, okay. And so I thought of the daily dose of deciding your destiny. So what can I talk about today? And yesterday it was all about, I had this big passion, and it was after speaking to family and other people and other objections, and having quite a few objections along the way of the day, and realizing, wow, I want to do what I want to do even more now, even though people are objecting. How can you do that? Who are you? What right do you have? What accreditations? What role? Why should people listen? I just went, cool. Like, now you're really waking up the beast. Now you're really getting me excited about doing this, because you're challenging me. And I embrace those challenges, and I think that's something, I guess, for our audience, or for people listening, really like managing the self-talk and managing outside influences. Because that could be your news, that could be your media. Some of the biggest hitting things could be family that are really close to you, slightly doubting or questioning. And it comes from a place of love oftentimes. I love you. I don't want to see you disappointed. I don't want to see you hurt yourself. Are you sure you can manage this? I really think it's so important to inspire each other and ask those questions. Yeah.
Totally.
Do you have a good support system?
I've got I talk about my support system in terms of frothers, like a frothy ecosystem. So when I talk about frothing, like it's, as you know, it's surfy slang or snowboard slang for being amped. And like we talked about the other week, it's when you have a good conversation with someone, which I would call a frothy conversation, it's resonance. So if you're both resonating, you both come up.
Yes.
And so I run a workshop called Finding the Frothers, and I kind of which is also called How to Have a Beer with Your Heroes, because there's a process which the most important thing in the middle of the ecosystem is your anchor frothers. So that might be your family. For me, it's my partner Jackie, and it's probably another performance coach who I've started another business with up in Cairns. So he's not actually physically with me, but he's kind of been my rock sort of thing. And tell you if you've been a bit of a dickhead, put your head in. Yeah. And then the outside that is what I'd call a boundary level frother. And so you could think about, people always think in Instagram terms and stuff, but it might be someone that you're following on Instagram that lives in your city or is accessible. You've already talked to them. They're a mentor, but they're not that far removed. Like if you really wanted to connect with them, you could. And so you're kind of pulling them into that circle. And then you've got this outer ring, which is kind of your universal frothers. So that might be, some people will say they don't have universal frothers. Steve Kuhn says he doesn't, because he believes that everyone's on your boundary. And I love that. That's so cool. But for most of us normal humans, will be who don't have that confidence. Well, they probably got the confidence that's got to uncover it. But I believe I could bring everyone. I believe I could bring anyone into my life if I had a real purpose for it as well. But for most people, they'll be like, let's say Richard Branson's a common one when you do this workshop with business folk. They're like, he's over there. I'm never going to get to see him, but I'd like to think I would one time. I'd be able to connect with him. And I'm like, well, actually, if you're building towards this thing, you will cross paths with him. If he's part of your journey, you will, because it just happens. And
the amazing thing is, it's these networks. It's like, as you get deeper into, I guess, who you follow or who you're inspired by in terms of mentors, or you realize, and like, we talk about Stephen, but you realize these people, they have these networks. And it's like, when there's a Richard Branson network, you see who he's networked with, and you go, wow, they're just different ecosystems of networks of people with similar mindsets, similar goals, similar passions that come together for causes. And as you kind of move into that zone, not necessarily move up, but you're moving into that zone, moving into that area, you can find yourself rubbing shoulders with people, and you just go, wow, like, how did I get into the situation? And it's just I think can't remember who. It was Jordan Peterson, and he was doing a lecture. And I think he was talking about how connected we are, and how you are 1,000 people away from 1 million people. Like if you've got 1,000 people in your ecosystem, and that person knows, every one of those people know another 1,000, you're one degree of separation from 1 million different people. And then if you know another 1,000, then you're another degree of separation from 1 billion. And it's just showing how connected we all are. And it's incredible. Like, for me to get on this conversation from you, from Stephen, you can slowly more and more align with those people that are in sync with you. And they could be a Richard Branson or whoever,
Totally. Yeah. Most people don't put it out into the universe that they want to meet that person. And I'll which is the funny thing I always say to people. They're like, oh, so how many of you people have told someone else that you want to meet this universal person? And most of the hands go down, and they're like, how are people supposed to help you? How people, but the other crucial part, which I think you touched on before, is you don't want to have too many. I think we've got too many senseis at the moment. So I think, like, if say you want to learn one skill, like if you want to learn piano, are you watching 10 piano people on Instagram, all with different styles? Like I've tried to learn piano before, and that would absolutely do my head in. Maybe some people could do that, but realistically, you probably want one, max 3 that you're following. And I think the same applies for mentorship, across the board. Like, where are you heading? Who are the people who have been there before? And another beautiful thing, which actually ties this story together nicely, is my anchor frother, Rob. I ran the workshop for him the other day, and a bunch of the other Flow Genome coaches, and he actually leveled up the workshop live. I say to people, well, what's the conversation that you would have with that person? So let's say Richard Branson. and get the people to think about that, because that kind of goes, okay, yeah, I've got something to say to him. Rob said, maybe it's about what's the gift that you would give to Richard Branson. And then that's like, okay, when I've got a gift that I can give to this person, it's not just mutual respect. It's like something that I'm doing is good enough, and I wholeheartedly believe, and it could help Richard Branson on his journey. That's next level thinking, and that'll pull them closer to you.
Yeah.
100 times.
Yeah. It'll be like a lasso pulling it like right close to you, because it just, you don't know. It just takes that right time, that right opportunity, that right event, that right seminar, that right thing that you go to, and that person that's going to introduce you, or that, everything aligning, and you're there, and we got to realize, they're people too, like, I think this might be a bit crude, but one way I look at it is, everybody shits, like no matter if you're, like one way to just kind of deflate your anxiety of going to meet someone or going to introduce and having a bit of a moment, you just consider that, we all do the same things, have the same worries, have similar sort of fears. We're all human beings at the end of the day, and go in there with like, instead of your mouth communicating, your heart communicating, like your resonance communicating, and communicate with that. And then you'll have something that you can really create together,
Totally. Yeah. It's like so easy to say. And then there's been like, because I used to go to a lot of tech conferences, and just like sometimes I'd walk up and I'd be on fire. And then another time I'd walk up and it'd be someone who I've only just seen speak. And for some reason, the energy of them, I would go up and I'd be like, ooh. Like, I don't know. But then some people, you're like, oh, this is me and this person are on. And so I think the way that we communicate can tell us a lot about our preparation, but also like, is this person a frother that I'm destined to jam with and to support?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the connection that's deeper than all the mental, like all the physical, it kind of goes deeper into our heart and soul. And I think that's like, part of what you're talking about. Part of what you're talking about there is, we've got so many mentors, we've got so many people that we're kind of looking at, so many different people, but who's going to resonate with me? Who's going to resonate, And I think, what you said before earlier was bang on the money, because if you're going to learn more about life, say you're going to learn about finances, you're going to learn about mental health, you're going to learn about these sort of things, choose that one person and go deep with that one person. If they resonate with you, go deep with them, because that's where, when you go deep, you can really learn, wow, where did they sort of grow up? What sort of challenges did they have? How did they react? And you can really work out those intricate details that you can go and add little bits of ingredients to your life and go, okay, cool. He went into this career and that's why he actually talks like this now. And then he changed into that, and because I think a lot of us go very surface level with a lot of mentors, like, hey, do you know Tony Robbins? Yeah, I've seen a 20-minute video of him. Like, okay, but do you know much about him? Do you know where he came? Have you gone deep? No, I've got like 50 people that are, and I know, I mean, I'm the biggest, I'll put my hand up. I did that for like, once you get hooked into the personal development sort of world, I mean, there's an abundance of amazing beings in all sorts of categories who communicate to all sorts of different parts of you, your ego, your heart, your mind. And I think, you're right. You need to go deep with that person that resonates with you.
Who are you going deep with at the moment?
Oh, that's a good question. I thought I was doing the interview here. Here we go.
Got to be spontaneous, mate.
I love it.
Never know what's coming.
Exactly, mate. That's the way I love it. Well, I've met this legend, Benny Wallington.
That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah. No, mate. You're like, and like, to speak on that, I think the people that can be inspirational to you, for me, some of them can be really high up, like, achieve amazing things. And I'm not saying you haven't achieved amazing things, by the way, but they can be people that you interact with locally and in your space, but you're resonating with them. I'm able to go so many layers deep with you and really resonate with you, because we're both kind of on this journey, where a lot of our mentors generally are maybe 50, 60 plus, have achieved a lot, really know who they are. And I think, I'll get to answer your question interviewer. But I think, I think for me, I was asked quite a few tough questions yesterday about like this book and writing this book and, kind of accreditation and everything. And I said, I guess one of my biggest driving points was, I'm a 27-year-old man, turning 28. I'm going along the journey. I've had a lot of experiences packed into this short lifespan so far. These are the things that have really helped me out. These are the things that have helped me accomplish the things and get over the challenges. And this is some wisdom I can share, from living with my grandparents for 10 years, from going through operations for a major organ, from that being something that you manage. It's not, you have the operation, you're done. You manage that all the way through your life. Those learnings might be able to add something to people's lives. Dare I say it, might be able to save people's lives, might be able to, bring people back from apathy. So why would I not put that out into the universe? That's my thinking. And it'd be nice, I think, someone at a younger age, I'm going along it. I don't have it all figured out. I'm not 60. I'm not 70. I don't have a Fortune 500 company. I don't have 500 staff under me. But hey, this is what I've learned so far. Join me for the ride. And I think that's a different level of mentors. Like you kind of inspiring me and giving me your advice and kind of helping me along and telling me things that you really appreciate. It's another level of mentor that you can go deep with.
Yeah, mate.
Yeah, but I mean, look, in terms of someone that I'm going deep with, look, I love Les Brown. Like, I love his energy, like, and his laughter. Like, I really resonate with that. The joy, because I laugh at life a lot, or I laugh at like some seriously heavy shit that goes on in my life or that goes on in life. I just go, fuck, is this happening? And so I love that joy. And one person who I guess is a contentious, or how do I say, is Grant Cardone. So a lot of people kind of give me different sort of reactions, when I kind of share something that I heard from him. And what I realize, what I really get from him, is the energy levels. It's that energy, that energy level, that frequency that I really kind of enjoy. Because I've listened to, I think, 4 of his books, and each one gives you different information. But really, what I'm picking up is that energy. And when it comes 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, I might just chuck on a chapter and just go bang. I was thinking about taking a nap. Let's punch through, Kyle. You said you're going to do these things. Let's do it. So that's who I've gone deep with lately. How about yourself?
Mate, that's awesome. Just to touch on that, like with designing flow-based living, Grant Cardone is a flow trigger for you because, like that, rather than having the nap or rather than having the second or third coffee. And this is what I love, because conversations and podcasts are epic. It's awesome to be in a conversation. Sometimes we don't want to talk to people, We wake up in the morning feeling a bit flat. Who's someone I can listen to that's like a trigger for me? Grant Cardone. In the same way that, like, I say music, nostalgia is a drug. Like, the music that you listen to as a teenager has this magical effect. If you're feeling flat and you crank, for me, it was like emo punk rock, which is a bit weird. But like, crank some old bangers in the morning or in the afternoon, whenever you just need. So it's all about just those lists of flow triggers.
Just to jump on that, Aussie hip hop. Aussie hip hop is my flow trigger as well. Yeah,
like Hilltops and all those guys.
Hilltop Hoods, Bliss and Esso, like, because they even got like more of a soulful, spiritual level to them in some of their albums, like a different sort of Earth Boy. So
I used to jam out to those guys as well.
Yeah.
So my mentors are Jamie Wheel, who's the director of the Flow Genome Project.
Yep.
I'm very blessed that I can contact him whenever I want. He's a universal frother that I ended up in Croatia on an island, sitting there having a beer with him, telling him about frothing, which is just wild. So there's kind of the example of that.
Yeah.
Jamie's there. Tyson Young-Porter, who wrote this book called Sand Talk. He's a first Australian. I've not met him, but I've had a couple of conversations with him. So he's really epic. And then I've got a mentor, a physical mentor I can actually hang out with here, called Christine McDougall, who runs a movement called Syntropic World. And it's all about how can we redesign business in a way that is for a world with a future. So rather than, I guess, the way that with, the capitalist society has run for so long, money in, money out. That's kind of the value that we trade on. How can we bring in complementary currencies? How can we be trading more with our skills, possessions that we've already got that are just laying dormant, and just being super transparent on what I actually need as a human. Yeah. So highly recommend Syntropic World, Flow Geno Project, and Sand Talk. So they're the three I'm going deep with this year.
Beautiful, mate. I love it. That's and you're being you're being useful with the resources we already have. I think one thing I really would like to touch on is when you're talking about kind of being sustainable with our business, being sustainable what you do, and when you're in the advertising world, and that gentleman kind of just went, why am I selling these companies that are cutting down forests? Why am I, that sort of thinking. I had a similar experience when I was doing my diploma of photo imaging, and I asked the head teacher there. I said, "What would happen? Like, what would you suggest? Say if I got offered a job by a cigarette company, but I know the damage that cigarettes, do, and it's not something generally that I think is good for human beings. No offense to anyone out there that smokes, but that's my general opinion. So and say if they were offering me money and it was going to take my career off, what would you say I would say do in that situation?" And he just threw it back at me because I guess it was kind of not a silly question, but I was dancing around the topic, and he just said, "Well, you have to decide whether that's something that really like aligns with you and what you want to do. Like, do you want to help advertise something that you don't believe in?" And I thought it was a real good point of contention to think about, because we can just naturally go along and naturally say things, do things, regurgitate information that we hear, spread fear, worry, spread, I guess support causes that maybe we don't believe in, but we don't really need to think. We believe we don't need to think about. But becoming a conscious human being is really considering your actions. Considering your drinking habits, considering how you impact each other, considering if I bring in all this toxicity in my personal life into this network meeting, into this family home, am I lifting the room or am I darkening the room? Really being conscious of what you're doing, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, will really help you, I think, align with your purpose, because you can end up in places where you're kind of cutting down the forest. And then you have to look at yourself at the end of the day. You have to kind of look at yourself and go, wow, is this what I wanted to be doing? Is this how I leave a legacy?
Yeah. I think the key point there is kind of transition. So I feel that there's a lot of you work for these guys, you work for Coca-Cola, you do this, blah blah blah. I think it's not as easy when you've got a mortgage and you've got kids to feed to say, I'm quitting Coke and I'm going to go join an ashram or whatever, or try and find that green client. But It's about having a transition plan. So it's like, I'm going to do my best and letting people know. It goes back to the frothy thing, right? Yeah. I'm looking for a job in positive impact. Who can help me? Blah, blah, blah. Whereas a lot of people probably, just like they do with drinking habits, will sit back and be like, oh, I'm fucking useless. I feel horrible, but this is just what I do and I can't figure out a way out of it. But it's just like, what is that first step to, and it might be reading something by Tyson Young Porter. It might be, some beautiful essay or a book, and you've just gone, oh, okay, there's way more to this whole story than what meets the eye. And that first step, mate, I'm all about transition. I still live in an apartment. I hope to be off grid at some point, but it's not super easy. Try not to use plastics, but it's not super easy. But yeah, I'm definitely on the path, and that feels good. And I feel like if you're on the path, because there's one thing that my friend said to me once, he was one of Australia's best strategists in advertising, actually, ironically. Yeah. He still is, but he doesn't work in mainstream advertising. He said that your values shouldn't be something that you just cruise into. They should be what you're attaining, you're looking to attain. They should be a challenge. And I was like, I'd never actually thought about it like that. It shouldn't be the thing that I am, because if that's what it is, then cool, you've achieved it. But what could it be? Like, what could I be? So, waste free might be a value that you're striving towards, but I'm not waste free yet, like who is?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And being kind to yourself along the journey is important.
Totally.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. Because we can be our biggest judgment, on ourselves. So along with that, I guess, kind of signifying question would be, what roles do you think like our individual stories play in the bigger picture? So these people that, like these mentors that you're following, obviously they play a huge role in your life. Some of the causes that you're involved with, some of the work that you're doing, and also something that I try and tell people is that don't deny the power of you inspiring someone else. You saying to someone, hey, let's go for a walk, might be that person was on the verge of, taking themselves out. Like your power to inspire and shift someone's mood and life forward, like everybody has that power and ability. So I guess the question is, what role do you think our individual stories play in the bigger picture of everything, of the world?
I think they're massive, and I love what you said before about if I write a book and one person reads it and that changes them, like job done.
Yeah.
Because if you I didn't starting the 101 tokens, I did it to change my own drinking habits. So I was trying to run my Good Seats project, my Seats project.
Yeah.
It was literally so I could have more space and money to do that stuff. I wasn't trying to start a business. But once I did that, and then literally the most rewarding still part of, people downloading it all over the world, whatever, was that second year when it was friends and family. Like I think I knew 80 out of the 90 something. And so that whole year it was me and them, no tech. It was like, holy crap. And that had profound effects on some of my friends. One of them was on the verge of, he broke up with a really long relationship, and he came to me the year after and he said, while we're having a beer, mind you, having a couple of mindful beers, and he said, I was on the verge, mate, of committing suicide, and that really helped me because I think the booze would have pushed me over. And so I don't need that to justify it, but that's, if you can help the people within that you love the most, there's nothing more rewarding than that. Like we can all have these goals to save the world, but at the end of the day, if you can prove that you can be kind to yourself, you can help yourself, then share that, like share your story with the people around you. The people who need it will read it. And then if that gets momentum, then, then look at the mentors who can help you create products and programs and tech apps and stuff that can then have people in 76 different countries do the same process. And then you just, figure out what's next. And that's fun. And I just think if we all just treated, and I got this kind of from Tim Ferriss really, because he's like the human guinea pig, he used to call himself back in the day. I don't know if he does anymore, but just like, I think he said once, life's just one big experiment. It's just one big opportunity for us to play around with it. And if you take that mentality to everything, like at the moment, this is really weird. I'm creating a playlist for my friend's unborn child because in 2018 I created a playlist, and then they listened to it through the pregnancy of the child. They had the baby, Ollie. He's like an absolute frother. The playlist is called Finding the Frothers.
Yes.
And it's all just beats. It's all just like resonant beats, like some of my favorite music's on there. And they told me, when they came back from Sweden, because they had the baby in Sweden, Marie's Swedish, that they listened to this playlist. And I was like, what do you mean? They go, oh yeah, the midwives suggest that you should listen to music while you're going through pregnancy. And then so when you're in the delivery room, you have resonant music that calms you down, even though these were some pretty wet beats. So you've got just that familiarity and like comfort. And I was like, whoa. Anyway, so they're having their next baby. It's due next month. And so I'm putting together another playlist, and I've been reaching out to the artists from so my head, like that's not making me money or anything like that. But my head is like, this is heaps fun. And how cool would it be if people started to think, I might make a playlist. I'm calling it the Musical Doula Project. I might make a playlist for my friend's unborn child. How fucking cool would that be? Or like even just think about Ollie, who's now got this playlist that, I don't know, like they could not tell the kid about it the whole time and drop it on the dance floor at his 18th and just see what happens. Or maybe the kid who's been listening to it before he was even born just has this resonance with these artists already. Who knows, man? I don't know. I don't know. Musical doulas isn't really a thing, but why not?
That's
why
so creative. That's so out of the box. And you know, our subconscious is so powerful. You talk about like there's, you know, these things called engrams, or I think there's other words for them. But you know, if you're in the womb and if you're, say, two people have an argument and they bang a cupboard door, when that baby is older and he feels a cupboard door bang, his emotions go really like to that place because of the emotional, you know. So the music, like you said, like why not? Let's like influence with positivity, with good beats, you know, with energy, you know, bringing that kid out into the world with energy. Like I love the thinking, man.
Yeah, really well, it wasn't even the thinking, because it wasn't even. I didn't know that was a thing. They didn't tell me they were using the playlist.
No, you just floated.
And then they just mentioned it to me, just like in passing. Oh yeah, your playlist. Blah blah. I was like, what? I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the influence that's going to have, man. Like you said, bringing out at 18. Hey man, these are the songs, you know.
They might hate them. I can just imagine, like, oh, mum and dad's music. What the hell is this?
Yeah, exactly. And then they'll find themselves like slowly dancing a bit, like, oh, why am I enjoying this? I'm supposed to hate it.
And you know what's been interesting about I've done a bit of research into some of the songs, and they were built in flow states. So one of them, you might remember this song called Sail. I don't know if you might have seen it on, like, anyway, the guy wrote it. He was just about to quit music. It goes like, sail.
Yes.
Yeah. He was just about to quit music, but he went, oh, bugger it, I'm just going to go in the studio and write this thing. And he just dropped into this flow state. He quit all his other advertising music jobs, which was sucking all his creativity. He was like, screw them, I'm not doing them anymore. Went into the studio and wrote this banger in an afternoon.
And it's blown up, that song.
It blew up. Yeah, it was huge. It wasn't on the original playlist, but I added it. And then I actually gave a talk on that song and just his talk around it, because, you know, he's a misfit, and then he found flow, and then he's gone on to be like an epic performer, like live performer with his music. So I love those stories.
Yeah, the story behind it's so powerful, man. And there's so many stories. Yeah. And I think each of us, like in our own way, finding our own purpose, that's a big point. You know, what is kind of sucking the energy? What's kind of, you know, he worked out that his advertising, you know, like the other things that he was doing because of money, because of, you know, or I don't know the story, but for whatever the reasons being, can kind of suck you away from your true purpose and the true identity and the true reason of, you know, if he hadn't cut them off, he wouldn't have created that song, and we wouldn't have had that song, you know. I think that's what I'm really enjoying, I guess, in 2020 and going forward is I'm noticing more and more people like us. Not saying that there needs to be more people like us, you know, we're proppers, we're hoons, but I'm noticing more and more people like us who are asking questions, who are curious, who are considering things, who are trying to create different solutions for humanity, who are thinking outside the box, who are, you know, coming up with different inventions. And, you know, that's been for a long time, but I feel like as change increases, you know, incredibly, these solutions, these people, these innovators, these people asking questions are really coming out more and more. And I think that's where we can really get unique people, you know, and people being like stepping into their lives of creativity, creating songs like Sail, you know, creating their own, oh, I was on this earth to do this, or I want to get involved with this, or let me try and, rather than carbon copies, you know, and we've all been carbon copies, or we've all, you know, oh, why did you do something? Oh, because everyone else was doing it. And we're all going to the pub. You know, why were your hands caught? You know, why were you caught in the situation where you did something that was a bit wrong? Oh, you know, we all did it. I just followed the boys, and we all ended up in the situation. You know, instead of that, you're kind of going along your own journey, and then meeting with each other as you're in those creative states.
Totally, mate. Yeah, I'll tell a really short story. The other day I was watching. I don't have a lot of musician friends, but like I try and play guitar. I'm not very good, but I'm improving.
Awesome.
And my mates are just phenomenal musicians. Some of them, like they're newer friends, kind of like the last 3 or so years. And and I went and saw them play the other night. It was the first show that we're allowed to go actually watch live music. And they're telling a story about when the pandemic hit, and then there's all these boys. They all live in the Northern Rivers. It's a good playlist called Buskaroo Crew. If you want to check it out, most of them are on that. Anyway, they all got together and they were kind of writing this song together about death and suicide and depression, and because a lot of them have had issues with mental illness.
Yeah, especially in the last year.
Yeah, totally. Anyway, so they went through this kind of cathartic experience of crying and writing this song, and then they, at the other side, they wrote this really joyous song about life and love and living. Yeah. And I was like, and it just clicked in my head just then. I was like, yeah, do we have those? If we don't know what you said, what lights us up, where we find our light, how do we transmute the pain into a joyous song? Music is such an epic way to do it. For me and you, it's writing, or it might be photography, might be just getting that shot, or being one with nature in that flow state. But how are we transmuting the pain into a positive? And that's where I think we're stunted a little bit, especially males in Australia, probably not getting together and crying and writing songs together.
No, not all the time.
Might be going to the pub and doing all this thing, but it doesn't have to be going to the pub. It doesn't have to be going making music. It can literally be, what do we do together that changes that narrative, and how do we have open conversations around that? And that was just like, I actually want to create a little workshop just on that moment and their process.
Leveraging those powerful transitions, so that other people can kind of that can gain something from it. Go for it, man.
Totally, man.
Yeah, and you're right. I think the point of transitioning and growing is so that we can come out of that pain, that apathy, and get into life force. And that's going to be a journey as we go up and down, up and go. But hopefully, with stigmas being not destroyed, I guess, with us evolving, that men can cry, men can be emotional, men can be sensitive. I know I grew up around quite a few buddies, and because I had a big health complication at age 18, and I remember the specialist talking to me and saying, Kyle, you're going to shift from your friends. Like, it's just going to be natural. Like, I want you to be ready for this. Like, all these different changes, your health, different things you're going to have to manage. But one thing you have to understand socially, and I'm really grateful that he did say this, is that you're just not going to necessarily totally sync up with your friends anymore, or align with them, because you're going to be at this different stage over here where they're going to be. And I realized that in terms of, I guess, I wouldn't call it self-abuse, but, like drinking and other things that, young people do. And I just realized, like, well, shit, my health was compromised. I can't really keep doing this. Let me go find out what else there is in life, and maintain that curiosity. The biggest thing that really crushed me was that I wasn't able to play rugby. And when I was younger, rugby was like my God. I was like, I'm going to play professional rugby. Like, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to make it, and not being able to do that, like, was obviously a tough transition, a lot tougher than drinking and partying and a lot of those sorts of things. But being able to just get curious about something else allows you to evolve, and that's, I think that's the whole point of it all, because if we don't evolve, we're going to keep doing the same things. What happens when you get sad? I go and commit these acts, or I go into these bad habits, or I do this, and then my self-worth gets decreased, and then I go down the spiral. Well, why not grab a mate, maybe grab a beer, and let it out. Let it out. And that person you're talking to, you're having a beer with, when they were talking about suicide, you were having a beer with him. And so getting away from the stigma, like the absolutism that I think is in society, where you shouldn't drink, it's bad for you, or this peer-reviewed study says any bit of alcohol creates this amount of depression, so you should. It's like, whoa, let's get back to circumstantial thinking. Maybe this guy needs to go and have a couple beers with someone to get to the point where he can open up, and that's going to do so much more healing than him just not having any beers and sitting at home. And I think that's where it really takes critical thinking. We're in an age of data, in an age of information, in an age of overloaded studies and articles of what's right and wrong. I think it really takes critical thinking, and you'll have conversations with people, and that's where you get to resolutions. And I think that's it's not as valued anymore because of in a polarized sort of world. I think it is valued obviously in different sectors, but to have conversations and get to resolutions rather than have everything so science, paper, article, material based, informational based, because we're in such an information content heavy age, that kind of gets away from our humanity. Like, you know, well, I read this paper and it says if you want to solve this, then you've got to do this 5 times a week, and you've got to make sure you don't have any alcohol. You've got to make sure it's like, hang on a minute, I'm trying to tell you my issues and you're telling me about this article. You're making me more depressed. Like, help me out while I'm here with you and we're having a beer, you know?
Yeah.
Takes that critical thinking.
Yeah. And context.
Context
is everything.
Yeah. But and maybe that's being at home so long, and maybe that's having such, like, you know, never in humanity have people had such access to so much information, you know, information data. We're very information data based. Or we have so much of that at our hands. But like you said, bringing that into context, how does that apply in this situation? You know, how does that apply to me? Well, man, I've had an awesome chat with you, and I guess I mean I could keep going, and I think we'll do one down the track. But in terms of where we're leading with the conversation, I just wanted to finish up with one last question, and I guess it's an important question to the whole, I guess, community that I'm creating here. And I want to ask you, in your own words or in your own way, and it could be different words to you, but what does deciding your destiny mean to you?
I think the topic of questioning is appropriate here. Deciding my destiny is asking that question.
Yeah.
What does the world need of me is a nice question that I've got it on my phone. Wow. What do I do next? So I think, man, the reason that I train, my favorite metaphor is this, right? So we want to talk about flow states and those foundations of flow: nutrition, sleep, water, all this kind of stuff, movement.
Yeah.
Those practices allow me to go out and surf when the waves are pumping and I can get the best barrel of my life. But those practices are also the driftwood, that same piece of wood that I get the barrel on that turns into a piece of driftwood that keeps my head above water when the seas are just going gnarly, right?
Yeah.
So I guess to your question, it's like, who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? World's a wild place. I'm just going to continue to do those things so I can catch the wave, but I can also keep my head above water so I can help other people keep their heads above water.
Mate, you're an amazing human being. That was beautiful.
Likewise, mate.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And that's an incredible answer, and also very poetically said as well.
Oh, thanks.
Using your
practice or nothing.
Yeah, look at that, mate. That's what happens when it just comes out, as you say, get into flow state. Awesome. Now, where can some of my viewers find out more information about you, or follow you, or kind of learn a little bit more about the amazing stuff you do?
Yeah, check out 101tokens.com, or just send me an email, Benny, BENNY at 101tokens.com. That's probably the best place to find me. Some of my other projects are on bennywallington.com. I'll just be posting whatever I'm doing next, which should probably be something weird, no doubt, next month. But thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah, man, and thanks for coming along. And I mean, just in that response there, you can really see your direct link to actually helping people, because a lot of people will say, don't email me, don't contact me directly, or I can't hand. But you're like, hey, if I can help out, send me an email, I'll get to it. Be patient, but I'll get to it, and I'm happy to help. So that's you're actually showing, rather than just telling what you want to do. You're showing that you actually really want to help people, which is beautiful.
Totally, yeah. And if I don't know what the answer is, I'll send you to someone within my radical network who may be able to help. So yeah,
awesome. Well, I'm enjoying becoming a part of that network and meeting you and connecting with you, brother. And
likewise, mate.
Thanks for the awesome interview. And thank you for everyone who tuned in and watched. And I really appreciate you joining. I hope you took away a lot of beautiful gold and raw material to enjoy your life even more and decide your destiny even more. And as always, guys, remember, decide your destiny. Thank you.
You.